The idea that the USSR killed more than the Nazis, and is thus at least as bad or worse than the Nazis, is a common thing you'll hear people say online. Of course, while it was an excuse to believe this kind of thing before the Soviet archives were opened, nowadays with all the data and the studies that can show the actual deaths that occurred in the Soviet Union, it's pretty unforgivable to say that the Soviet Union, which was crucial in defeating the Nazis, is at the same time actually worse than them. My aim is to make this a video that you can cite whenever someone claims the USSR killed more people than the Nazis, because that is just very wrong. I think this video also is helpful to just show that USSR also just had nowhere near the 40 to 60 million or so death toll that a lot of people tend to throw out. Also, to not get bogged down and confused with really minor casualty counts that don't add much to the total count in the long term, I only count casualties that number more than around 100k. I usually also roughly try to take the median between high and low estimates when it comes to death count. Finally, none of the numbers cited in this video are fringe or conspiratorial. All of this information is taken from compilations of studies that are cited straight from Wikipedia, which is useful in the case of this video because numerous studies are collected into one place. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So first of all, around 100,000 people were killed in the Red Terror under Vladimir Lenin. Another 3 million died in the Russian famine in 1921, which was brought about by the World War that had just ended, the first one that is, as well as the Civil War after it. There were 1.5 million killed in the Civil War against the fascists and against nationalist countries that broke away from the USSR at the fall of the Russian Empire, such as Finland and Poland. Of course, the White Army were straight up just right-wing and far-right fascists and capitalists, so I won't count the Civil War. Plus, you have 3.5 million dead in the famine of 1932 to 33 in Ukraine, which was, as has been exhaustively proven, not an intentional starvation by any means, in no small part confirmed by the fact that Russia itself experienced the famine at the same time, losing around 2.5 million, as well as about another 2 million who died of famine in Kazakhstan. Dekulakization, in the meantime, caused about 500,000 deaths. Around 600,000 people died from deportations, which were done out of the largely misguided suspicion that various groups would cooperate with the Nazis or try to secede from the USSR. There were around another 1.6 million that died in the gulags, many of whom were, of course, genuine political enemies or fascists, or just common criminals. Another 700,000 were killed in the Great Purges separately from the gulag. And if you want to add Nazi POWs, this is another 500k or so. I'm not counting actual Nazi soldiers killed in combat in World War II, because the assumption here is how deadly to its own people and to others in terms of aggression the USSR was. And World War II was, of course, a war of self-defense for the USSR, so to include those numbers would just be silly. Finally, the last major casualty event in the USSR's own borders was the famine of 1946 to 1947, which was caused by the mass infrastructural destruction that resulted from World War II and resulted in around 900,000 deaths. I'd hesitate to count this, but I will do so anyway just to be thorough. Now, if you want to go beyond the end of the Nazis, there isn't much more to add to the USSR's tally. The gulags were closed in 1953, and most of those who died in the gulags did so in the difficult conditions of World War II. The USSR participated in some other minor wars and foreign interventions in the Cold War, where not all that many people died in the grand scheme, except for the quagmire that was the Afghanistan War, which left around 1,100,000 Afghans dead, most of which were civilians. All in all, very roughly about 18 million excess people died in the USSR's 69 years of existence. This is, of course, a very high estimate. Here is a wider range of estimates of deaths up until the end of the Stalin period, of course not including the Afghanistan deaths or Nazi POW deaths. Of course, the vast majority of the USSR's deaths were not intentional, but came from famines, which of course were common occurrences throughout Russia's history until after collectivization, or only one famine ever happened again in Russia as a result of the devastations of the Second World War. If we only include offensive wars launched by the USSR, plus intentional persecution in gulags, collectivization, or by execution or through deportation, the number comes out to somewhere around only 5 million. Anyways, Let's now compare this to the 12-year reign for the Nazis, from 1933, when they first came to power, to 1945, when they were finally defeated. Roughly 26 million died to Nazi Germany's invasion, either because of combat, famine, displacement, or execution, including 16.3 million civilians, among which included 1.3 million Jews, as well as 8.7 million soldiers, 3.3 million of which were POWs. Another 4.7 million Jews and around 4 million civilians of other European countries were also killed. Plus, there were another million or so against other non-Soviet combatants. All in all, this adds up to the Nazis killing around 35.7 million people in just 12 years, about 3/4 of which was inflicted against the USSR. As can be seen, not only did the Nazis kill more people than the Soviet Union, but the USSR lost more people in World War II against the Nazis alone than the USSR itself killed throughout the entire 69 years of its existence. And this was in the process of the USSR going from a peasant backwater to the world's second largest superpower. In conclusion, saying the USSR killed more people than the Nazis is not only wrong, but quite literally Nazi apologia, because by wrongly claiming that the Nazis were less harmful than the Soviets, you are also wrongly implying that fascism is a preferable alternative to socialism. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a helpful comment if you want more videos like this, and also subscribe to me on Twitter if you want some more spicy hot takes, and I'll see you next time.